Harun al-Rashid was the fifth Abbasid Caliph. His birth date is debated, with various sources giving dates from 763 to 766. His surname translates to the just, the upright, or the rightly guided. Al-Rashid ruled from 786 to 809, during the peak of the Islamic Golden Age. His time was marked by scientific, cultural, and religious prosperity. Islamic art and music also flourished significantly during his reign. He established the legendary library Bayt al-Hikma in Baghdad in modern-day Iraq, and during his rule Baghdad began to flourish as a center of knowledge, culture and trade. During his rule, the family of Barmakids, which played a deciding role in establishing the Abbasid Caliphate, declined gradually. In 796, he moved his court and government to ar-Raqqa in modern-day Syria. Since Harun was intellectually, politically, and militarily resourceful, his life and his court have been the subject of many tales, some factual, but most believed to be fictitious. One factual tale is the story of the clock that was among various presents that Harun sent to Charlemagne. The presents were carried by the returning Frankish mission that came to offer Harun friendship in 799. Charlemagne and his retinue deemed the clock to be a conjuration for the sounds it emanated and the tricks it displayed every time an hour ticked. Among what is known to be fictional is the Book of 1001 Nights, which contains many stories that are fantasized by Harun's magnificent court and even Harun al-Rashid himself. Amongst some Shia Muslims he is despised for his role in the murder of the seventh Imam, Musa ibn Ja'far. His life. Hārūn was born in Ray, in modern-day Tehran province, Iran. He was the son of al-Mahdi, the third Abbasid Caliph, and al-Khazirun, a former slave girl from Yemen, and a woman of strong personality who greatly influenced affairs of state in the reigns of her husband and sons. Hārūn was strongly influenced by the will of his mother in the governance of the empire until her death in 789. His vizier Yahya the Barmakid, Yahya's sons, and other Barmakids generally controlled the administration. The Barmakids were a Persian family that dated back to the Barmak of Magi, who had become very powerful under al-Mahdi. Yahya had helped Hārūn in obtaining the caliphate, and he and his sons were in high favor until 798, when the caliph threw them in prison and confiscated their land. Muhammad ibn Jarir al-Tabari dates this in 803 and lists various accounts for the cause. Yahya's entering the caliph's presence without permission. Yahya's opposition to Muhammad ibn al-Layth, who later gained Harun's favor. And Ja'far's release of Yahya ibn Abdullah ibn Hussein, whom Harun had imprisoned. The fall of the Barmakids is far more likely due to their behaving in a manner that Harun found disrespectful and making decisions in matters of state without first consulting him. Al-Fadl ibn al-Rabi succeeded Yahya the Barmakid as Harun's chief minister. Hārūn became caliph when he was in his early 20s. Before that, in 780 and again in 782, he had already nominally led campaigns against the caliphate's traditional enemy, the Byzantine Empire. The latter expedition was a huge undertaking, and even reached the Asian suburbs of Constantinople. On the day of accession, his son al-Ma'mun was born, and al-Amin some little time later. The latter was the son of Zubaydah, a granddaughter of al-Mansur. So he took precedence over the former, whose mother was a Persian. He began his reign by appointing very able ministers, who carried on the work of the government so well that they greatly improved the condition of the people. It was under Hārūn ar-Rashid that Baghdad flourished into the most splendid city of its period. Tribute was paid by many rulers to the caliph, and these funds were used on architecture, the arts and a luxurious life at court. In 796, Hārūn decided to move his court and the government to ar-Raqqa at the Middle Euphrates. Here he spent 12 years, most of his reign. Only once did he return to Baghdad for a short visit. Several reasons might have influenced the decision to move to ar-Raqqa. It was close to the Byzantine border. The communication lines via the Euphrates to Baghdad and via the Balik River to the north and via Palmyra to Damascus were excellent. The agriculture was flourishing to support the new imperial center. and from Ar-Raqqa any rebellion in Syria and the Middle Euphrates area could be controlled. Abu al-Faraj al-Isfahani pictures in his anthology of poems the splendid life in his court. In Ar-Raqqa the Barmakids managed the fate of the empire, and their both heirs, al-Amin and al-Maimun, grew up. Because of the 1001 Nights tales, Harun al-Rashid turned into a legendary figure obscuring his true historic personality. In fact, his reign initiated the political disintegration of the Abbasid Caliphate. Syria was inhabited by tribes with Umayyad sympathies and remained the bitter enemy of the Abbasids, while Egypt witnessed uprisings against Abbasids due to maladministration and arbitrary taxation. The Umayyads had been established in Spain in 755, the Idrisids in Morocco in 788, and the Alabids in Ifriqiya in 800. Besides, unrest flared up in Yemen, and the Kharijites rose in rebellion in Daylam, Kerman, Fars and Sistan. Revolts also broke out in Khorasan, and al-Rashid waged many campaigns against the Byzantines. For the administration of the whole empire, he fell back on his mentor and longtime associate Yahya bin Khalid bin Barmak. Rashid appointed him as his vizier with full executive powers, and, for 17 years, this man Yahya and his sons, served Rashid faithfully in whatever assignment he entrusted to them. Al-Rashid appointed Ali bin Isa bin Ma'in as the governor of Khorasan. He tried to bring to heel the princes and chieftains of the region, and to reimpose the full authority of the central government on them. This new policy met with fierce resistance and provoked numerous uprisings in the region. A major revolt led by Rafi ibn al-Layth was started in Samarkand, which forced Harun al-Rashid to move to Khorasan. He first removed and arrested Ali bin Isa bin Ma'in, but the revolt continued unchecked. Harun al-Rashid died very soon when he reached Zainabad village in Tis and was buried in the nearby summer palace of Hamad ibn Qutayba, the former Abbasid governor in Khorasan. Al-Rashid virtually dismembered the empire by apportioning it between his two sons al-Amin and al-Maimun. Very soon it became clear that by dividing the empire, Rashid had actually helped to set the opposing parties against one another, and had provided them with sufficient resources to become independent of each other. After the death of Harun al-Rashid, civil war broke out in the empire between his two sons, al-Amin and al-Maimun, which spiraled into a prolonged period of turmoil and warfare throughout the caliphate, ending only with Maimun's final triumph in 827. Both Einhad and Nutka the Stammerer refer to envoys traveling between Harun's and Charlemagne's courts, amicable discussions concerning Christian access to the Holy Land and the exchange of gifts. Nutka mentions Charlemagne sent Harun Spanish horses, colorful Frisian cloaks and impressive hunting dogs. In 802 Harun sent Charlemagne a present consisting of silks, brass candelabra, perfume, balsam, ivory chessmen, a colossal tent with many colored curtains, an elephant named Abul Abbas, and a water clock that marked the hours by dropping bronze balls into a bowl, as mechanical knights one for each who emerged from little doors which shut behind them. The presents were unprecedented in Western Europe and may have influenced Carolingian art. When the Byzantine Empress Irene was deposed, Nicephorus I became emperor and refused to pay tribute to Harun, saying that Irene should have been receiving the tribute the whole time. News of this angered Harun, who wrote a message on the back of the Roman emperor's letter and said, "In the name of God the most merciful, from Amir al-Mu'minin Harun al-Rashid, commander of the faithful, to Nicephorus, dog of the Romans. Thou shalt not hear, thou shalt behold my reply." After campaigns in Asia Minor, Nicephorus was forced to conclude a treaty, with humiliating terms. Harun made the pilgrimage to Mecca several times, for example, 793, 795, 797, 802 and last in 803. Tabari concludes his account of Harun's reign with these words: "It has been said that when Harun al-Rashid died, there were 900 million odd in the state treasury." Al-Rashid sent embassies to the Chinese Tang dynasty and established good relations with them. He was called Alun in the Chinese Tang annals. In 807 Caliph Harun al-Rashid issued a decree that Jews wear a yellow belt and that Christians wear a blue belt. In 808, Harun went to settle the insurrection of Rafi ibn al-Layth in Transoxania, became ill, and died in 809. He was buried under the palace of Hamid ibn Khattabi, the governor of Khorasan. The location later became known as Mashhad because of the martyrdom of Imam ar-Rida in 818. Another tradition maintains that the tomb of Harun was razed in the Mongol raids of 1220, by forces under the command of Genghis Khan. Anecdotes. Many anecdotes attached themselves to the person of Harun al-Rashid in the centuries following his rule. Saudi of Shiraz inserted a number of them into his Gulistan, in one telling how Harun enjoined his son to forgiveness. Al-Masudi relates a number of interesting anecdotes in the Meadows of Gold illuminating the character of this caliph. For example, he recounts Harun's delight when his horse came in first, closely followed by Al-Maimun's, at a race Harun held at Ar-Raqqa. Al-Masudi tells the story of Harun setting his poets a challenging task. When others failed to please him, Miskin of Medina succeeded superbly well. The poet then launched into a moving account of how much it had cost him to learn that song. Harun laughed, saying he knew not which was more entertaining, the song or the story. He rewarded the poet. There is also the tale of Harun asking Ishaq ibn Ibrahim to keep singing. The musician did until the caliph fell asleep. Then, strangely, a handsome young man appeared, snatched the musician's lute, sang a very moving piece, and left. On awakening and being informed of this, Harun said Ishaq ibn Ibrahim had received a supernatural visitation. Harun, like a number of caliphs, is given an anecdote connecting a poem with his death. Shortly before he died, he is said to have been reading some lines by Abu al-Atiyah about the transitory nature of the power and pleasures of this world. Popular culture and references. Rex Stout's The League of Frightened Men, page 191, has Mr. Hibbard say, Harun al-Rashid was seeking entertainment, not life. Henry Wadsworth Longfellow wrote a poem which started, One day Harun al-Rashid read, a book wherein the poet said, Where are the kings and where the rest, of those who once the world possessed? O. Henry uses the character in his story The Caliph and the Cad. The theme of the story is turning the tables on Harun al-Rashid. Alfred Tennyson wrote a poem in his youth entitled Recollections of the Arabian Nights. Every stanza ends with Of good Harun al-Rashid. Harun al-Rashid was a main figure and character in several of the stories in some of the oldest versions of the 1001 Nights. Hārūn ar-Rashidi figures throughout James Joyce's Ulysses, in A Dream of Stephen Dedalus, one of the protagonists. Stephen's efforts to recall this dream continue throughout the novel, culminating in the novel's 15th episode, wherein some characters also take on the guise of Hārūn. Harun al-Rashid is also celebrated in a 1923 poem by W. B. Yeats, The Gift of Harun al-Rashid. A story of one of Harun's wanderings provides the climax to the narrative game of titles at the end of Italo Calvino's If on a Winter's Night a Traveller. In Calvino's story, Harun wanders at night, only to be drawn into a conspiracy in which he is selected to assassinate the Caliph Harun al-Rashid. The two protagonists of Salman Rushdie's 1990 novel Hārūn and the Sea of Stories are Harun and his father Rashid Khalifa. In the Sten science fiction novels by Alan Cole and Chris Bunch, the character of the Eternal Emperor uses the name ar-Rashid, when incognito. This is confirmed, in the final book of the series, as a reference to the character from Burton's translation of the Book of the Thousand Nights and a Night. In Roald Dahl's story The BFG, the Sultan of Baghdad says he had an uncle called Caliph Harun al-Rashid who disappeared with his wife and 10 children. The movie The Golden Blade, starring Rock Hudson and Piper Laurie, depicts the adventures of Harun, who uses a magic sword to free a fairy tale Baghdad from Jafar, the evil usurper of the throne. After he finally wins the hand of Princess Khairazan, she awards him the title al-Rashid. The comic book The Sandman features a story set in the world of the 1001 Nights, with Hārūn ar-Rashidi as the protagonist. It highlights his historical and mythical role as well as his discussion of the transitory nature of power. The story is included in the collection The Sandman, Fables and Reflections. Harun el-Poussa in the French comic strip Isaac Out is a satirical version of Hārūn ar-Rashidi. In Quest for Glory 2, the Sultan who adopts the hero as his son is named Hārūn ar-Rashidi. He is often seen prophesying on the streets of Shapaa as the poet Omar. Harun al-Rashid appears as the leader of Arabia in the video game Civilization V. Future U.S. President Theodore Roosevelt, when he was a New York Police Department commissioner, was called in the local newspapers Harun al-Roosevelt. In The Master and Margarita, by novelist Mikhail Bulgakov, Harun al-Rashid is referenced by the character Kiraviv, in which he warns a doorman not to judge him by his suit, and to reference the story of the famous caliph, Harun al-Rashid. In the 1924 film Waxworks, a poet is hired by a wax museum proprietor to write backstories for 3 wax models. Among these wax models is Harun al-Rashid, played by Emil Jannings. In the 2006 novel Variable Star by Robert Heinlein and Spider Robinson, Chapter 1 is prefaced with a quotation from Alfred, Lord Tennyson's recollections of the Arabian Nights regarding good Harun al-Rashid, the relevance of which becomes apparent in Chapter 2 when one character relates stories of Harun al-Rashid to another character in order to use them as an analogy. The second chapter in the novel Prince Otto by Robert Louis Stevenson has the title in which the prince plays Harun al-Rashid. Harun al-Rashid has a character page in the video game Crusader Kings 2, and it is possible to play as his descendants of the Abbasid dynasty. Harun al-Rashid is mentioned in passing by the character Madame de Villefort in Alexander Dumas' novel The Count of the Monte Cristo as an example of how different cultures react to poisoners. References. Further reading, Al-Masudi, The Meadows of Gold, The Abbasids, Transl. Paul Lund and Caroline Stone, Kegan Paul, London and New York, 1989, Al-Tabari The History of Al-Tabari Volume XXX The Abbasid Caliphate in Equilibrium Transl. C. E. Bosworth, SUNY, Albany, 1989. Clot, Andrew Copyright. Harun al-Rashid and the Age of 1001 Nights. New Amsterdam Books. ISBN A0-941533-65-4. Harry St. John Bridger Philby. Harun al-Rashid 1933. Einhard Nutker the Stammerer, Two Lives of Charlemagne, Transl. Lewis Thorpe, Penguin, Harmondsworth, 1977, John H. Harun, Famous Men of the Middle Ages, 1, William Muir, KCSI, The Caliphate, Its Rise, Decline, and Fall, 2, Theophanes, The Chronicle of Theophanes, Transl. Harry Turtle Dove, University of Pennsylvania Press, Philadelphia, 1982, Norwich, John J. Byzantium, The Apogee. Alfred A. Knopf, Incorporated. ISBN A0-394-53779-3. Zabath, Haidar Reza. Landmarks of Mashhad. Alida UK. ISBN A964-444-221-0. The starting statement that he was the fifth Arab Abbasid Caliph that encompassed modern Iraq is very incomplete because Abbasid Caliphate during Harun's reign encompassed at least modern-day Iran, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, Syria and parts of northern Africa. External links, Brentjes, Sonia. Hārūn al-Rashidi. In Thomas Hockey al. The Biographical Encyclopedia of Astronomers. New York, Springer PPA 474-5. ISBN A978-0-387-31022-0A.